Hello, welcome to a Blockbench tutorial. Now, in this video, I'm going to be teaching you the very basics about Blockbench. So, when you first open up Blockbench, the first thing you're going to see is this window. Now, you're going to see some artwork here. This one's by Meringue and Piece de Voix. They like to show artwork by the community here. Underneath that, you're going to see New and Recent. Recent will show you any recently made models you may have, but if you're new to Blockbench, you probably don't have any. On the left side here, you'll have a New. You'll have a General, which is generic model and image. Now, those we're not going to be paying attention to in this video. We're going to be paying attention to the Minecraft tab. A lot of these options here that you see are not ones that you would normally see, as I have plugins that make them available, such as Minecraft Title. You're most likely just going to see Java Block, Bedrock Entities, Bedrock Blocks, Modded Entities, most likely those four. We're going to start off with a Bedrock Entity, just for the example of this tutorial. When you click on it, you're going to see a Create New Model, and you can click there. Now when you open up, you're going to see a Project tab. The Project tab is important. This is where you're going to name your file. Now underneath File Name, you're going to see Model Identifier. Model Identifier is very important. If you have a coder, or if you are coding it into the game, whatever you are making, the model identifier is what it is referred to in the code of the game. So, for this case, we're just going to use tutorial. I'm not going to be importing this into the game because I don't have the coding knowledge necessary to do that. Now, default UV mode, for the sake of tutorial, we're going to stick with per face UV. This basically just means that every face of an object you have is its own separate part of the texture. And now we are in Blockbench. In the middle of your screen, most obvious stuff you're going to see is the primary viewport. Now, primary viewport is very simple to maneuver. You just left click and drag to rotate your camera. And if you want to move your camera around in 3D space, you can right click and drag. You can also scroll to move in and out. And that is really about all you need to know for movement. At the bottom right here, you'll see a little, more like a plus icon-ish. It has Y, X, and Z on it, with the different colors to show which axis. If you click on these dots, it will snap your view to that dot. So if I want to view it from an angle that is flat 2D side of east, you will click on the East X icon, which will snap your model there. If you want to get out of it, you can just simply go over back to the little circle and click outside of the circle and drag a little bit. And it'll snap it free. Now, first thing you want to know here is the grid. The grid shows you the Minecraft pixels and tiles that you'll usually see. The north icon, little N, shows which direction north is. So if you want your model facing a specific direction at all times, you can choose from there. Now the little red line shows the x-axis, and the blue line shows the z-axis. You won't see it, but there's a green line going up and down that is the y-axis. Now, let's start off with your windows that you see. On the left side, you'll see a texture window. This is where you can import or create textures. Now, for the sake of this video, we're not going to get into that. We'll probably get into that in a separate video. On the right side, we have the element viewer. Element viewer is where you'll be coloring, where you'll be making the models themselves. You'll basically just, everything will be sorted here. What we're going to do is we're going to click on Add Cube, little square icon here. That creates a little cube right here in the middle of our grid. Now, we're going to go over movement and how the tools work. Top left of your little primary viewport, you'll see a little row of icons. The very far left one with little arrows is Move. You can hotkey this to V. It will be automatically done for you. Now V gives you some arrows facing in each axis direction. This just allows you to, well, move it. Now, if you notice when you move it, it snaps to the grid on the floor. Now, if you don't want it to snap to the grid, if you want to move it a little bit more precisely, you can hold Control while dragging, and it will allow you to move in decimal intervals. which is pretty helpful if you want a very like slight jut out or a very precise model design. Now, when it comes to the control, it can be used for any of the tools: rotation, scale, and movement. However, if you use it for scale, unless you're using per face UV, which we are here, it could cause problems with the texture. Now, I'm not sure how exactly to avoid this, but other than using per face UV, that's what I use to avoid it. Now, let's move on to resize, the scale option. You can hotkey this to S. You can scale your model however you wish, any direction you wish. You can move it left, right, however you want. Make it tall, make it skinny, whatever you want. Next is rotation. Now, rotation is, well, you rotate. It's simple. You can rotate it on your pivot point. Which leads us into our next option, the pivot tool. The pivot tool allows you to edit the pivot point of your object. Now, what I'm going to show you real quick is what your object moment would look like. As you can see, the pivot point is here at the origin. But say we want to rotate the cube from the center of the cube. Now, you could just take the pivot tool and move it up one, which would set it to the center. Or, if you have a bit more of a larger model and you're not quite sure where the center is, you can go to the right side of your screen, up here to the Element tab, and down at Pivot Point, you will see a little button on the right side that says Center Pivot. It will automatically, when you click it, center the pivot directly into the center of your model, wherever you choose. That's basically all you need. The rotation, sorry about that. Rotation rotates from your pivot point. Movement and scale do not care about the pivot point. They just do not care about it. So rotating it is where you're really going to need your pivot point. Say you're creating a joint. Like, for example, we're just going to have a joint here, a little arm. And we want to rotate it. Now, obviously, we can't just rotate it from the center. If we want it to be an arm, it's got to rotate from the shoulder, right? So what we do is we select pivot tool, move it up to wherever we want it to rotate from. We can move it here, so it's connected to the shoulder, and then we can just rotate it however we wish. Now, center pivot again, and we're back. Now, vertex snap. Vertex snap is only good if you have multiple models, really. But what you can do is you can select a vertice or a vertex, so little edges of your model. The very, very tips, like little corner edges. And you can select one, and then if you select another model or the same model and select a different one, it will automatically rotate and snap the model to that other vertice. Now, next one, which you'll only usually see if you have move or anything. If you vertex snap, you'll just see snap mode, move, or scale. But when it comes to movement, you see local, global, bone. I'm not quite sure how necessary that is. It really doesn't do much, but we're going to stick with local. To the right of that, though, you will see a little spine-like icon called mirror modeling. Mirror modeling is important if you want your model to be symmetrical. So say I want 2 of these pillars on both sides of the grid. If I select mirror modeling and I drag my model to one side, another version of that model will appear on the other side. This time it didn't. Why didn't it? Ah, there we go. It'll appear on that side. I accidentally must have rotated it on the Z-axis. It'll appear on the X-axis. It mirrors on the X most of the time. Now, I'm pretty sure there's a tool that you can use to help with that, but I don't usually bother with that. Usually. Toolbar here. Top left, with little 3 dots right next to the spine icon. You can select Customize, and it'll allow you to select whatever you want to be in your little icons at the top left. A lot of these don't matter, because since we're doing Minecraft models, we're not dealing with stuff like loop cuts and seams. Just getting rid of the mirror modeling here. So we aren't dealing with most of it. Now, for the rest of it, on the top right here, you will see 3 little icons. An image, a little sun icon, and 3 bars. The image icon is view mode. It will allow you to view yours in a textured format, or view your model in a solid, wireframe, or UV preview. It allows you to see it different ways. I usually just keep it textured, as I don't really see a need for the others when it comes to Minecraft since they're all cubic. Shading allows you to enable or disable lighting. It's helpful if you want to see your model in a lighted scenario or not. 3 bars is preview. This is a pretty big menu. It allows you to screenshot the model. You can change the background checkerboard into something else to just not be there, which is helpful if you want. You can add reference images, copy reference images from clipboard, you can edit reference images, and you can, most importantly, preview a scene. I use this a lot. If you're texturing or if you're modeling and you want to make sure a model fits into the vibe of Minecraft, you can select preview scene, and you can select whatever Minecraft biome or just a generic studio, and it will automatically set your background and a couple blocks around the model to that. Now, one of the more important objects here in the preview menu is, if I set the thing to none, is the bottom Minecraft player. If you are going to make a model and you want to have it to scale with the player, select this, because it will create a little Minecraft player, which is to scale with your model. So if you want your model to be 2 blocks tall, you can scale it to that Minecraft player. Now, down here you can also see center view on selection. That is helpful in case you want to record a GIF or you just want your view centered on an object. It will center it to the very center of your model. So if I click it, since I have this cube selected, if I click center view on selection, it will snap the camera to that object. Now, you can have save angle and angles. Angles allows you to view your model from specific preset angles, such as isometric left, so the top, otherwise. It's very similar to the little bottom axis button I showed you earlier. Now you can also, if you click save angle, you can save an angle and you can do, it will set it in the angles menu. At the very bottom, you'll have your little custom angle. So if you want to view your angle from a specific way, you can do that. Now, I'm not quite sure about orthographic, but split screen. Split screen is also not very important, but you can use it if you'd like to view 2 viewports at once, or more. You can have double horizontal, double vertical, whatever you want. It allows you to view your angle from 2 separate ways, any way you want. Now, obviously the most important part of this, when it comes to files and exporting and all that, is the top left. These little row of selections here. You have File, Edit, Transform, UV, Tools, View, and Help. Help allows you to view the wiki and various other helpful little tips and tricks for Blockbench. View is very similar to the preview menu. It allows you to have, it allows you to center view and selection. It allows you to change view mode, go to full screen, preview scene, various other things. You can toggle the sidebars. You can split the screen. You can also record a GIF in case you want to make your model be a GIF you can send to your friends. In the tools, you'll have a toolbox which just allows you to view more of the tools from the menu I showed earlier with like move, resize, rotate, scale, stuff like that. Just a little more of them. It also shows you the texturing tools in case you want to just immediately go to texturing. UV, we'll talk about a little more when it comes to textures. I'm not going to get much into UVs here. Transform. Transform allows you to scale your models, rotate, and flip. Now, the scale one here, I want to talk about that for a second. Let's say I have a model here, right? And I have 2 of them. And let's just say they're that size, right? If I want to scale them up to be bigger, I can't just select them both and scale, because that happens. It creates a really weird merge effect because it scales them independently of each other. But we want to scale them together, so if we go to transform and scale this bar up here, you can do whatever you want. You can change the pivot point, whatever, but this little slider, if you drag it, will allow you to scale your models a little more perfectly, a little more precision when it comes to it. I'm not going to do anything with that for now, but let's say, another term, you want to make this model reflect. Go right on upside down so it's symmetrical on the y-axis. You can just click flip, and you can flip Y. Now for this, let's just go duplicate it by holding Control D, and we flip, and click flip Y. There. Now we have it symmetrical on the y-axis. Now, if you go over to transform, there's also center. You can center the model on the x-axis, y-axis, or z-axis. You can center lateral, whatever you need. You can rotate it 90 degrees in whatever direction you choose. You can have properties such as toggle visibility. You can lock it so you cannot interact with it no matter how hard you try until you unlock it, in case you're wanting to texture something or move something specifically. You can toggle export, and you can toggle auto UV. Now, edit, the edit menu. This allows you to undo, redo. It just gives you tons of little edit options as well as their little shortcuts. You can add cube, add groups. Groups are important, and we'll go over them in another video. You can duplicate, you can rename, you can find and replace, unlock all, which means in case you have some models locked, you want to make sure all of them are unlocked, you can just click that and it will unlock all of them. Remember, you can just, if you're confused on an option, you can just hover over it with your mouse and it will tell you exactly what it does. You can enable mirror modeling here, you can do selections here, it's very helpful. But now, the most important part of Blockbench, where you're most likely going to be doing things at the beginning and ending of things, you're going to be able to go to the File tab. This will show you the project, which will allow you to rename your model identifier, change your default UV mode, whatever you want, same as earlier. You can also create a new file, open recent ones, open models by files. You can open a model from a link. You can create a new Blockbench window. And you can, most importantly, save your project as a specific name. You can convert your project to another type. So if I wanted to convert this bedrock entity into a bedrock block, I'd click it, format, and I'd click bedrock block, whatever I want. If we go back to file, we can see there's also close project, which will just allow us to close the window. There is import, which allows you to import a .bb model, which means basically a Blockbench project, in case you want to import a whole project and not just the model itself, because the model is the geometry file, or whatever you export it as. Export, as I just said, you can export it as whatever you need. If you're doing Minecraft, though, you're most likely going to be exporting it as bedrock geometry. Now, save model allows you to just save the model, textures, everything together. Preferences, you can select settings, key binding, change your Blockbench theme. You can change your plugins, and you can edit your session. If you want to collaborate with other users, you can have the same session, and it's really helpful. Now, the last thing we go over before we finish up this tutorial is the very right side at the top right. You'll see Edit, Paint, and Animate. Now, we are in the Editing tab. Everything we have done is in the Editing tab. Painting is more texture-wise. We'll go over that in a separate video. Animate we'll also go over in a separate video, but this is how you're going to quickly access these menus. You can, this will just, teach you how to enter correctly. Now, that is really all I'm going to show you today. I will probably be making another video soon, explaining painting and animation. Now, I'm not the best animator, so hear me out on it. But other than that, that's really all I have to explain. That is really the basics of Blockbench. I have taught you how everything works. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching.